The chains bit into Saria Velquin's wrists like the teeth of dishonor. She knelt in the dim holding cell of the slave market, her back straight despite the weight of the metal and betrayal. Her eyes, once admired by nobles for their molten gold shimmer, were now dulled by days without sleep, food, or hope. Her body was bruised, her armor long gone, and her silver-white hair hung in tangled knots. But still, she held herself like a warrior, because that's what she was. Or used to be, Zalari-blooded, war-born, daughter of House Velquin, the last of the old bloodlines bred in the cradle world of Zalira Prime, raised for battle, strategy, and unwavering honor, and sold by her uncle for a shipment of war drones. Baron Vantrell, her father's own brother. He didn't look her in the eyes as he signed the deal. Just a dismissive flick of his cloak, and the clink of credit chips sealing her fate. Now she was one of dozens in the marketplace on Gravemire Station, orbiting a decaying moon. It was the kind of place where no one asked questions, where you could buy cybernetic limbs, black market fuel, or a living person with the same ease. She watched people pass the cages, scavengers, pirates, mercs with scars and blank stares. Some paused at her cell, tempted by her appearance, by her heritage. But when they read the biometric tag on her collar and saw what she was, a Zalari combatant, they all moved on. Too dangerous, too much trouble, too expensive, until he walked in. He wasn't like the others. No swagger, no armor, no display of wealth or cruelty. Tall, ragged coat, stubble on his jaw, a mech arm that whirred with a smooth, fluid noise, old but well-maintained. He looked like a man who had once been feared and had grown tired of it. A faded soldier, perhaps, or a deserter. A ghost from a war no one remembered. He didn't walk through the market. He hunted through it. His eyes scanned each cage, not for beauty, not for submission, but for something unspoken, something deeper. Then those strange green eyes locked onto Sirius. She met his gaze without flinching. He stopped in front of her cage. The broker, a glistening Threxian with a grin like an oil slick, slithered forward. Ah, yes. This one's a rare catch. Zalari blood. Still got fight in her. Might kill you in your sleep, though. She got a name? The man asked, voice low and rough. Velquin. Saria Velquin. Used to be something fancy. Now she's just another bit of angry meat in a cage. The man looked at her longer. Not with lust, not with fear, with recognition. Her, he said. No hesitation. The broker chuckled. You sure? Got cheaper stock. Easier to break. I said her. With one hand, he dropped a heavy pouch of plasma coin. It hit the metal counter with a dull thud. More than enough. The broker's eyes gleamed. Right then, she's all yours. Good luck keeping your throat. The gate buzzed open. Saria stood but didn't move. She was prepared to fight if this was another predator, another slaver. Her muscles tensed like drawn wires. No weapon, but she could kill with her hands if she had to. The man reached out, not to grab her, but to offer her something. His coat, worn leather, torn at the sleeve, smelled of oil and old fire. Warm. Come on, he said quietly. You're not staying here. Why? Her voice was cracked from disuse. Because nobody saved me when I needed it. His green eyes softened. So now I do the saving. She hesitated, then took the coat. And for the first time in months, Saria Velquin took a step forward, not because she was ordered to, but because she chose to. The ship smelled like old plasma and burned wiring, but Saria liked it. It was functional, compact, dusty, and far from luxurious. But every part of it worked. That said more about the pilot than the vessel itself. Human make, Saria guessed. Mid-tier transport class, but retrofitted for speed and damage control. The hull was scorched in places, yet sealed cleanly. Blaster marks on the airlock door. This ship had seen combat, So had its captain. Elias Rain moved like a man used to. Wounds. He didn't limp, but he carried his weight low, as if expecting to dive at any moment. His right arm was clearly synthetic, sleek, not flashy, with military-grade enhancements woven into the alloy. Not standard issue. A soldier who had earned that upgrade. The man said little during the jump to light space. Saria sat opposite him. In the galley, a ration pack unopened in her lap. Her body still expected commands, collars, bruises, but none came. "You haven't eaten," Elias said, not looking up from the screen he was tinkering with. "I don't trust it." He raised an eyebrow. "It's freeze-dried chili. Tastes like regret. But it won't kill you." She didn't smile. "You didn't collar me. You're not a pet." That gave her pause. No one had ever said it like that, so plainly, so obviously, like it wasn't a favor or a performance. Just fact. "Then what am I?" Elias finally looked up. "Someone who deserved better." He went back to his screen. Saria studied him, brow furrowed. "Why did you buy me?" He didn't speak right away. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, but thoughtful. "Because I've seen what happens when no one does," he said. "I was left behind once, cost people their lives. Swore if I ever had the chance to reach back and pull someone out, I'd take it. You don't even know me. Don't have to." He looked her dead in the eye. "You didn't scream. Didn't beg. You were sitting in that cage like a sword someone had left in the rain. You just needed someone to pick you up and clean the rust off." A strange tightness built in her chest. It wasn't trust. Not yet. But it was something. Elias stood and pulled a small black bag from a storage compartment. "There's gear in here. Not much. Scavenged armor. A shock blade handle. Pick what fits. Tomorrow we stop at a supply moon. You can walk away then, if you want. I won't stop you." Saria took the bag without a word. Later that night, she stood in the cargo bay. The lights were dimmed, but her body moved out of instinct. She strapped on old gauntlets, adjusted a leg brace, ignited the shock blade and listened to its familiar hum. She danced through the air with quick, calculated slashes, letting her limbs remember their purpose. She didn't see Elias watching from the upper deck, quiet, arms crossed, a man who understood the silence of warriors. By the end of the session, sweat ran down her back and her breath came fast. But her eyes were alive again, sharpened. She wasn't anyone's prisoner now. The next few days passed in a rhythm that Saria had forgotten existed. Elias showed her how to navigate the ship's systems, read star maps, and bypass basic security locks. She taught him knife combat and hand-to-hand drills from her Zalari training days. He gave her a ship job, co-pilot. She gave him silence, observation, and presence. He didn't touch her, didn't probe her pain, but he saw her. And that was more dangerous than any cage. They landed on a rust world called Telharn's Verge, a trade outpost with questionable laws but good tech. Elias bought her better armor, proper rations, and a new sword core. She expected him to hold the receipts over her head. Instead, he just said, "Pay me back by surviving." By the third week, they were laughing. She hated it, but she also didn't want it to stop. One night, during a calibration check, Saria finally asked, "Why do you call it the Dust Wolf?" Elias sipped something sharp from a flask. "Was the name of my squad. We were ghosts behind enemy lines. Fast, smart, dangerous. We'd get in, finish the mission, and vanish. You were military? Earth Alliance Vanguard. Special Ops. They gave us medals, then forgot about us. What happened?" He glanced at his mech arm. "One mission too many. She didn't push further, didn't need to. Pain recognized pain. You ever miss it?" She asked. "No," he said, and then added, "But I miss having people I trusted at my back." She turned toward him, blade resting across her lap. "You do now." He looked at her, and this time he smiled. Not out of politeness, but because he believed her. They came at night, silent, fast, and well-armed. The Dust Wolf wasn't docked. It was hovering in low orbit above the mining colony of Virek 8, and Saria was in the middle of a blade calibration when the alarms howled. "Unknown bogies," Elias shouted from the cockpit. "3 ships, formation tight, military pattern Old Dominion tech." Saria was already suited, shockblade ignited. "Boarders?" Too fast for diplomacy. The ship rocked as a plasma bolt slammed into the lower hull. She sprinted into position, hair tied back, mind already calculating. No fear, no hesitation, just war. Elias barked over comms. "They're forcing a dock, port side." "Let them," Saria replied, voice cool as steel. "But we hold the bay." When the enemy breached, they expected a terrified crew. They found Saria, Zalari-born. War-tempered, a sword in the shape of a woman. She moved like lightning, shockblade carving through armor like air. The first merc fell before his boot hit the deck. The second raised his rifle, only for Saria to duck, pivot, and sever his knee at the joint. Elias provided covering fire from behind a crate, his mech arm absorbing recoil from an old but powerful scatter cannon. He moved like a trained soldier, no wasted motion, always protecting her flanks. "Why us?" Saria growled between kills. "These aren't pirates," Elias shouted. "They're hunting you." Realization hit like thunder. Baron Van Trell, he'd sold her, yes, but not without contingency. She was a liability. If she survived and spoke, she'd destroy him. He wanted her gone, quietly, permanently, and now his hounds were here. A grenade rolled toward Elias. Saria kicked it mid-air into a wall and dove over him as the blast rocked the chamber. When the smoke cleared, they were back to back, breathing hard, alive. The last merc fled. Smart. Later, in the quiet of the medbay, Elias stitched a shallow wound on her shoulder. "You saved my life," he said, not meeting her eyes. "You saved mine first." They sat, in silence for a long time, the hum of the ship, the only sound between them. Finally, she spoke. "He won't stop." Elias nodded grimly. "No, he won't." Saria stood, her jaw set. "Then we don't wait. We hit him first." His eyes narrowed. "You sure?" He tried to erase me. "But I'm not a ghost." She stared out the viewport, at the stars stretching into forever. "I'm coming home. Not for vengeance, for truth. For every girl he caged. For every soldier he betrayed." Elias smiled. "Then let's get you a real sword." 2 days later, they found it, buried in the wreckage of an old Zalari cruiser drifting beyond the Blackmore Nebula, untouched for decades. Saria walked its ruined halls like a priestess in a forgotten temple. The ship, once called Honor's Wake, had carried her ancestors into battle. In the sealed vault at its heart, she found the blade, 10 feet long when activated, humming with violet plasma energy, bound to Zalari biometrics and laced with a sentient AI core. Its name burned into her mind the moment she touched the hilt. Nearith. The flame that remembers. The blade sang in her hand. "Do you accept me?" "Saria," whispered. The blade pulsed. "Yes," it answered in her thoughts. "You are worthy." Back on the Dust Wolf, Elias watched her train for hours. She moved differently now, sharper, faster. Not just a soldier reclaiming herself, but a woman becoming something more. He found her that night beneath the starlight in the observation deck. "You." "Found your sword," he said. She nodded, the blade humming beside her. "But you also gave me something more," she whispered. "A home. A name. A reason." Elias's voice was rough. "We'll take down your uncle. Expose everything." "I know," she said softly, turning to face him. "And after?" Saria stepped close. "I stay. With you. If you'll let me." Their eyes met. No games. No fear. Only truth. Elias leaned in, forehead touching hers. "You already have." The moon of Cytheris 9 wasn't just barren. It was cursed, a mining colony turned secret fortress, hidden in the shadows of forgotten trade routes. That's where Baron Vantrell made his throne now. Built from stolen credits, broken lives, and forged contracts. Slavery, weapons, black market biotech. He dealt in anything that bled. Syria and Elias landed the Dust Wolf under the cover of a magnetic storm. Stealth shields active, systems low power, every movement calculated. Syria stood at the boarding ramp in black battle armor laced with Zalari rune codes. Nerith pulsed at her back, whispering to her in a language only warriors of the old blood remembered. The flame blade wasn't just a weapon, it was her soul made steel. Elias approached behind her, adjusting his mech arm. This isn't a raid, this is war. She didn't look back. Then let's make history. The infiltration Cytheris 9 was guarded by ex-Dominion mechs, auto-turrets, and snipers, hired from 3 systems. Elias hacked the perimeter while Syria took down the scouts with terrifying precision. By the time they reached the inner complex, the entire outer perimeter was silent, every camera blind, every guard unconscious or dead. I remember this place, Syria said quietly as they entered the central dome. He made me fight here, for sport, for contracts, blood for credits. Elias touched her shoulder. Then this time, you choose the rules. The arena Baron Vantrell waited in the old gladiator chamber. Gold robes, rings of authority, surrounded by mercs and corrupted Zalari generals. His voice echoed across the blood-stained sand. Well, my little star returns. You should have stayed in the dark. You were more useful there. Syria stepped into the arena alone, Nerith glowing behind her like a star, reborn. You sold me, she said. He smiled. And look what you've become, a weapon polished by betrayal. I'm not your weapon. You were made for war. I'm war. She raised her blade. The lights dimmed, and the world caught fire. The battle, they came at her in waves. Elite fighters, mechs, old assassins with neural mods. But Syria moved like the storm. She didn't just fight. She danced through. Battle flame and fury fused into form. Nerith tore through steel like silk. Her armor cracked under bullets, but she didn't slow. She wasn't fighting for vengeance anymore. She was fighting to end a system built on cages, to burn it down. Elias fought at her side, covering angles, disabling turrets, taking a plasma bolt to the chest and getting back up again. At one point, a Zalari war champion stood before Syria, 7 feet tall, armored, genetically enhanced. The audience went silent. He swung, she ducked, and Nerith whispered, "Burn." She split him down the middle in one blow. The confrontation Baron Vantrell stumbled backward, all guards fallen, robe soaked in fear. "You're nothing without your fire, without that cursed sword." Syria stepped forward, face calm, hair slicked to her cheek with sweat and blood. "I was nothing with you." He reached for a hidden pistol. Elias shot it from his hand. Syria stood over the Baron, blade hovering near his throat. "The galaxy will know what you did. Every cage, every scar, every lie." "You think they'll care?" he spat. She leaned in. "I care." She didn't kill him. She transmitted his entire confession, recorded by Elias during the fight, to every system in the quadrant. Broadcasted live, syndicated, inescapable. Vantrell wouldn't die a martyr. He'd live a prisoner of the Empire. He thought he ruled. Aftermath, as the moon burned and reinforcements arrived to arrest the Baron's elite, Syria and Elias stood by the Dust Wolf's landing ramp. "You could have ended him," Elias said. "He'll rot in the same kind of cage." "He built," Syria replied. "It's better that way." Elias was quiet for a moment. Then, "So, what now?" Syria looked up at the stars. "Now we find others like me. We burn the rest of the system down." He smiled. "And me?" She looked at him, eyes soft. "You stay at my back, or I stay at yours. Whichever way we walk." He pulled her close, forehead to forehead. Together, then. The galaxy trembled. Vantrell's confession had spread like wildfire, broadcasted across neutral colonies, imperial hubs, outlaw ports. Within days, his empire began to unravel. Contracts canceled, allies vanished, systems rebelled. The message was clear. No more chains, and at the heart of the uprising, whispered between comms and revolutions, was a name: Seria Virel, the Flameborn, the girl who burned her cage. The rise of the flame, they called themselves the Unbroken. Former. Slaves, indentured soldiers, forgotten daughters and sons from the Dominion's darkest corners. They rallied around Seria, not just as a warrior, but a symbol. She didn't ask for loyalty. They gave it anyway. Elias stood by her side, unofficial, second in command, his mech arm now upgraded with salvaged Zalari tech. Together, they forged a fleet of repurposed mining freighters, war wrecks, and civilian ships turned fighters. Their banner was Nerith's flame, wrapped in the symbol of a broken chain. But their target wasn't just Vantrell's ruins. It was the Crucible core, the Dominion's central server, the Black Tower where contracts were stored, bloodlines bought, memories rewritten. It was the heart of the system that created people like Seria, and profited from them. The final assault, they launched from orbit above Virek 9, with a dozen allied fleets at their side. Fighters screamed through the void, capital ships locked. Beams. Boarding pods flew like bullets into the core. Seria led the charge. The Crucible was a fortress of shadow steel and AI guardians, ancient and brutal. But Nerith sang louder than its machines. She cleaved through drones, automated sentries, and data-spliced monsters. Elias hacked the data core mid-fight, bleeding from his side, but smiling like a devil. 10 minutes and the whole Dominion registry goes public. You better not die. Seria growled as she sliced down another wave. We still haven't kissed properly, he grinned. Was hoping for something more than proper. The choice at the heart of the Crucible. Seria reached the primary terminal. A final interface. Hovered before her, coded in Zalari script, familiar and sacred. Nerith pulsed in her mind. You can burn it all, the blade said. The entire Dominion system, every chain, every lie. But you must give me everything. Your memory, your fire. I will become the flame that burns them all. But I will be gone, and so will your past. Seria froze. Nerith would become a self-consuming fire. A digital cascade that would destroy the Crucible and rewrite galactic contracts. But the bond would be severed. She would lose Nerith. She would lose her name. The flame of choice Elias limped beside her, coughing blood. Seria, what's wrong? I have to let her go. Then let her go, he whispered. You're more than your fire. You always were. She reached out, fingertips on the interface. Nerith's voice softened. I was forged for vengeance, but you were forged for hope. Seria smiled through her tears. Thank you. For everything. She pressed her palm to the core. Rebirth, the Crucible screamed. Systems collapsed. Contracts nullified. Across the galaxy, chains shattered. Digital, economic, and physical. The Dominion's backbone broke in a storm of light, and Seria collapsed in Elias's arms. 6 weeks later, the dust wolf floated above a green moon, peaceful and untouched. Inside, a soft breeze filtered through the open deck. Elias watched Seria stir in her sleep, bandaged and healing. Her fireblade was gone. Her name, nearly forgotten. But not to him. When she opened her eyes, dazed and blinking, he smiled. Welcome back. She blinked slowly. Did we win? He chuckled. You burned down an empire. I'd call that a win. She sat up weakly. What now? He helped her stand, holding her close. Now? He tilted his head. We start something new, something real. She leaned into him, her voice barely a whisper. I don't remember everything. Not my whole name. Not all the battles. That's okay, he said, pressing his forehead to hers. Because I'll never forget who you are. Epilogue. A new name, she walked through the growing rebel capital a week later, her presence lighting hope in every corner. The people called her many. Names now, the Ember Queen, the Broken Blade, the one who set the sky on fire. But to Elias, she was simply Saria, not the girl the Baron sold, the woman the stars followed, loved Saria's journey from cage to cosmic warrior. Then share this story with someone who believes in redemption, romance, and rebellion. Leave a comment with your favorite moment, and if you want more tales of love and war among the stars, subscribe, follow, and stay unbroken. The galaxy is only just beginning to change.